Maswati.
Asinivusele sinimukele masala mahlelo mhla ekseni ehleleni Kusile breakfast show. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi namuhla nivuke nathi kungilesihline dengemashumi lamabili nakuthathu 23rd of December 2021. Sekusele nje malanga la emfica kuphela ukuthi singene eminyakeni wa 2022. Kukumbuka nje ukuthi ihlelo uyakhona ukubukela na YouTube. Asisibukena ngombiko losuku etekele tempilo. Asikelangeni la itolo kuhlole abantu labangu 1762 kwatholakala ukuthi labangu 796 banemkhuhlane iCovid sishiye abantu lababili itolo emhlabeni. Labasesibhedlela labelashwa kubangu 84 la sebaluleme bangu 588 ama active cases bona emeku 10236 bese ukuthi lasebawutfolile umkhuhlane solo wabhetfuka sabangu 62890 lasebashile emhlabeni sebangu 1267 bese nasibuka tinombolo tebantu lasebagome ngalokuphelele bangu 294002 lesakwakha 25.2% we total population. Sisabuka nje wona umkhuhlane iCovid-19 hulumende waseveni lase Nigeria so memedele ukuthi so destroy vaccine yehlobo leAstraZeneca lengu 1 million kulandzela ukuthi solo kunebantu laba solo ba hesitant ukuthi bawugomele lo mkhuhlane kanti ke hulumende wakumemedela lokhu enyangeni lephelile ukuthi uta destroy 1 million wama doses ehlobo lokugoma lomjovo weAstraZeneca kanti ke lokhu kwendeke ngalesithathu ekuseni live lase Nigeria ngelinye lemave laqinisa imigomo yokulwa nekwanza komkhuhlane iCovid-19 njengoba nje enyangeni lephelile baveta ukuthi wonke umuntu utawuphoceleleka ukuthi agome lo mkhuhlane iCovid-19 uma ngabe afuna ke emsebentini uma ngabe afuna ke kuya kuma public spaces noma ke emicimbini na kuma restaurants kodwa lokhu solo akukadinyusi inombolo tabamfula sabagomile kungaleso sizathu ke bayidestroyile AstraZeneca kulela live kanti sesibuya khona eveni lase Libya libandla lelikhetho kulela live selicele ukuthi kupostpone noma ke kuchubekiselwe imbili lokhetho lwamengameli bekumele libanjwe ngalesihlanu kuleli viki kodwa ke sabacele ukuthi lichubekiselwe imbili mhla emashumi lamabili nakune enyangeni yaBhimbidvwane 24th of January 2022 kanti ke leli bandla livete tindzaba tekungathembeki kahle kwalabo labalingene lelikhetho kanye netindzaba kuphepha takhumula ke ukuthi live lase Libya so lide emengameli iminyaka leminingi kulandzela ukuthi lo yala bengumengameli Muammar Gaddafi bamsuse lesikhundla ngenkani aphinze asishiye emhlabeni kanti ke leli bandla selitfolile imvumo khona eParliament elikhetho litawubanja mhla ka 24 January 2022 namhla ehlelweni imbukelisi idaba esibuka nje lethu lethamba embili lokho kulamanye emave siphinze sikhulumisi kube ne video ya Secretary General wenhlangano kaMhlaba yetempilo WHO Dr. Tedros asiniketa nje updates ngawo umkhuhlane iCovid-19 kanye ne-vaccination rate emhlabeni wonke kwanyalo sibahlele emakethe nasibuya sihlabene netindzaba tetfu.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni. Come on. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store. We're good together.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome back mbukeli solo ubukela hlelo Kusile breakfast show sangwe 1978 Silengosi Mswati wesithathu nendlovukazi Mhlekazi bahole sive emkhosini wencwala lenkulu lebobanjwe esigodlweni eLitsitsini. Sive siphume ngetinkani sasingatha emakhosi kulomkhosi welive lekuthe usacubeka yalandzelwa nemithetho yebetempilo yokugwema kwanza kwemkhuhlane iCovid-19.
Sive siphume ngetinkani saphelela esigodlweni eLitsitsini sagubha lusuku olubalulekile ekuphileni nasemlandweni wesive seMaswati. Ingcwala lenkulu ihlanganise sive lebesichamuka edvute nakhashane. eMaswati lebekadze asesigodlweni eLitsitsini emkhosini wencwala lenkulu akhombe inhlonipho lenkulu lanayo ngamakhosi elive nangemkhosi wencwala lokungumkhosi lawuhlonipha kakhulu eMaswati. Ingonyama yeMaswati, inkosi Mswati wesithathu, iphumele esiveni sayo ngendasi kwesibaya. Imbube emhlaba ihlonishwe ngengoma yesive lokuthite ngemva kwaloko yasese ihlola umbutho webetekuvikela. Ingonyama yeMaswati ngemva kwaloko ingene ngekhathi esibayeni. Ngesikhathi ingena esibayeni ingonyama ihlola lebutho. Emabutho avakale ayemukela ngalokukhethekile. Silo semhlaba sihlole emabutho lebekahlamele ngelisiko lakhona futhi anothe aphelele. Njengoba nelive solo libhekene nemkhuhlane iCovid-19, emabutho emnikati bekafake itifonyo letivala umlomo nemphumulo aphindze akhweshelene. Empeleni wonke longene ngekhathi esibayeni nguloyo lotholakele yahlobile uma betempilo lebebenta umsebenzi wabo ekuhlola sive ngeliso lelikhaliphile bahlola sona sive bahlunga kude kuthi leso sive lesidinga kwelashwa selapheke bese kuthi labete umkhuhlane bagidze ngekukhululeka. Ingonyama yeMaswati ivuselwe nabo olusiba lukhulu labanxusele emave abo kuleli lababengetulu kwelishumi lena bobalalisele imbube emhlaba bayifisela umkhosi wencwala lomuhle egameni lemakhosi nabomengameli bemave emhlaba. Lokhu kukhipha isithombe sekutheni lo mkhosi wencwala lenkulu uphinze uhlonishe nakulamanye emave emhlaba lapha evekatini leAfrika nangesheya kwetilwandle. Emakhosi yelive ingonyama yeMaswati nendlovukazi Mhlekazi abese sekahola sive kiyo incwala lenkulu. Emakhosikati yengonyama bogogo balondolozi nemalangeni bantu benkosi phela basingathe emakhosi kuwumkhosi sekugidwa. Uyigidzeleke incwala nandvunankulu welive Cleopas Sipho Dlamini kanti lena bekuyincwala yekuqala layigidze kusukela abulawa ingonyama njengandvunankulu welishumi nakubili welive leSwatini. Ngaphandle kwelibutho lesihlangu onke lamanye emabutho emnikati bekadze yanothe yaphelele akhemetela ngemvunulo yawo yencwala lenkulu. Emkhosini walonyaka wencwala lenkulu lapho khona eMaswati aphenze aphumela ebaleni ngelithandvo lwawo lwamasiko nemihambo ngibika ngingisandile Makhanya sibika sinazwela masuku esigodlweni eLitsitsini.
Indvuna yetevakasha Moses Vilakati ithi noma umkhuhlane COVID-19 utinciphisile tivakashi letingenela imikhosi yakuleli emaswati anemsebenzi wekwemukela tivakashi ngenfokomalo. Indvuna ithi tivakashi letinyenti mhlaba wonke tiyayijabulela imphatfo lenhle letifike titfole lapha eveni. Indvuna beyikhulumana yetfula inkulumo yekwemukela tivakashi.
Live leSwatini linamasiko nemikhosi lekhanga abantu labachamuka emaveni onke kanti ke kubhedvuka komkhuhlane iCovid-19 kube nemthelela lomubi kakhulu ekungeneni kwetivakashi kutoba ingcenye yale mikhosi. Indvuna yelitiko letekuvakasha Moses Vilakati ithi luhlangothi lwetekuvakasha lucashe emaswati longu-26%. Indvuna ithi emaswati akachubeke nekwemukela tivakashi ngendlela lefanele.
Nanyalo solo isihlasele kepha kubonakele ukuthi labo lasebajovile nalabo labathestile abete kule mkhosi. Sibonga ke kakhulu indzaba yokuthi emabhoda ethu asatawuvula ibhoda ikakhulu yase Oshuk sitawuvula 24 hours. Lokusho kona ukuthi sitawubheka ukuthi tivakashi kakhulu eqhamuka bomakhelwane tisivakashele ngayo lemikhosi. Sineke siyatigcabha ngokuthi livela kithi solo lihlete emasikweni leseneminyaka lengemakhulu lamane ngetulu ngemakhulu lamane lela lapho solo senda lokhu lesikwendako. Lokho ngilokunye lokusilethela tivakashi titobona ukuthi lobuntu bethu sibenda njani, lokugcina imvelo yethu sigcina njani, lokugcina emasingiso ethu siwenda njani. Nanyalo ke siyatibongela ngoba siyibonile nengatsha isuka etulu etindzaweni letehlukene itele wona lomkhosi.
Indvuna ithi lo mkhuhlane ucekele phansi luhlelo lwetekuvakasha lebelifise kunyusa luhlangothi lwetekuvakasha nga-10% kusukela ngeminyaka wa-2022 kuya ku-2025. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni kaLobamba.
Kumiswa kwalenye imicimbi yekutijabulisa emcimbini yetokukhangisa eDubai Expo esisatfu se-COVID-19 angeke kube nemthelela etinhlelweni live lelinato kulo mcimbi wekukhangisa lokuvetwe indvuna yetekuvakasha Moses Vilakati.
Ngemuva kwekuthi labahlela umcimbi wekukhangisa iDubai Expo 2020 bamemetele ukuthi imigidvo leyenta bantfu ukuthi basonzelane nakujatshuliswa abantu imiswe ngesizatfu sekunciphisa kwanza kwemkhuhlane i-COVID-19 leSwatini ke lona lingilamanye emave lakhangisa kulo mcimbi. Indvuna yetekuvakasha Moses Vilakati ithi leSwatini ngeke litsintseke kulolushintsho lwetinhlelo.
EDubai saya nasivulako samikisa licembu lethu letekugidza licembu lethu lemasiko awulafikela sebenta kahle basala vele babambiwa ngaphansi. Wasisita ke futhi nekwenta ukuthi abantu labanyenti base bafuna kwadi ukuthi kodwa kwendekani lemva ekhaya. Manje ke lokhu sekungenele Omicron vele sivile lokuthi imisebenzi leminye lenjengayo ikakhulu yabokugidza nabo yinini bayimisile ngani ngoba abafuni ukuthi kube nalokuthelelana ukuhlabela nje abafuni ukuthi kube nekuthelelana. Kepha ke kithi ngoba sine bese siyicedzile lenzima yethu kutela lapho ukuthi asilimata khona lokulokutabela lokwendekako le.
leSwatini linemikhiqido levele ikhangiswa kulo mcimbi. Indvuna ke ithi imikhiqido yakuleli bantfu bemhlaba bakhombisa inshisekelo lenkhulu kakhulu kuyithenga. Lo mcimbi ubheke ukuthi ufike emaphethelweni ngenyanga yeNdlovu lenkhulu eminyakeni lotako. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni kaLobamba.
Selitfolakele lisotsha lelicwile emfuleni inkomazi ebhulohweni leliwelela esitfashini emadlanga emphisi. Leli sotsha lacwila ngelisonto uma letama kugeza kulomfula.
Lendvodza leneminyaka lengemashumi lamane itfolakele imiti yashone emveni kwekube umbutho wembube newetekuvikela nesive sasenkambeni sicela kuyifuna ngemsombuluko yatfolakala ngalesibili. Sayichen Sylvester Mayisa uthi bavenebulukhuni kufuna lendvodza njengoba lendzawo inetingwenya netimvubu kuthiwa-ke ngekusitwa indiza lenesiba emhlane yembutho wetekuvikela le ndvodza itfolakele.
Fikile kitolo samfuna nemadivers apha esaphazamisa tingwenya netimvubu la emandini agcine baphumile. Namhla-ke sibize sabuyela sasihamba ngalo mfula sishona indasi asenkambele kodwa sedlulele kumthola. Kungumanje nje bese sicela ihelicopter yemasotsha.
Umbutho wembube ucelesive kutsi sicaphele singasonzeli emfuleni logcwele ikakhulu leyo letholakala kutsi emanti ahamba ngetulu kwelibhuloho. Umchumanisi wesive nemaphoyisa phindile Vilakati uvumile kutsi le ndvodza itfolakele ishonile. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV ngibonga Simagagule Sithwashini.
Umphathi wesikhwama lesithuthukisa abamfu labasha Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund Bhekizwe Maziya uthi lokwenda ticelo tebamfu labasha ukuthi tingabi impumelelo ukuthi bamfu labasha abatilungiseleli kahle njengoba lamanye emaphepha lamcoka abawathumeli. Maziya ukukhulume lokhu ngesikhathi yakhulumisana nebantu labasha abasesiteki esonveni lase-Fitch Memorial Church of the Nazarene.
Lisonvo lasesiteki Fitch Memorial Church of the Nazarene ngekubambisana naletinye tinhlangothi letifaka ekhatsi isikhwama sekuthuthukisa abantu labasha selifundise abantu labasha kabanti ngetemabhizinisi. Umfundisi waleli bandla Colin Magagula uthi lesento metamo yokuthi abantu labasha bakhone ukutiphilisa njengoba kubonakala ukuthi emathuba emsebenzi semancane eveni kungako bakhuthata ukuthi abantu labasha badvulele bona emathuba emsebenzi.
Inhloso lenkulu kwekuhlomisa labasha siyathi sisekhatsini letimatima ikhatsi tengucuko labasha manyende ama-challenges tingcinamba labahlangana nayo. Lesinye isikhatsi asikakhoni nathi kubatali kubeva nekucondzisisa lokubaphethe. Kungako-ke umfundasikolo usitile kwekuthi sithole abantu laba nalamakhono lehlukene labatawubuya bakhulume lulwimi lebangaluva lalabasha.
Umphathi wesikhwama lesithuthukisa abantu labasha Bhekizwe Maziya uchaze kabanti ngalokwenta ukuthi ticelo tebantu labasha tingabi impumelelo.
Kakhulu leli zinga lekulungiselela leticelo kubantu labasha liphasi lengasiphecelele i-preparedness. Lokusabahlula kakhulu ke ngile business plan. Siyakhanza lokhu sivele kusasekunengi lokufundiseka lokudzinga ukuthi sikwende kuze bakhona ukuthi le business nakayibeka lo muntu ephepheni ikhulumiseke iyofika egcineni uve wena umuntu lotawuhlanyela imali ukuthi uyowenda ini lomusha kuba nje ngulokutimisela kwemlomusha uma faka isicelo sawo labanengi kuncane lokutimisela ende nje kushode kakhulu nalamaphepha lahambisana nalesicelo sakhe.
Lokhulumele bantfu labasha Mlandvo Mathenjwa uthi lo mfundasikolo bebawudzinge kakhulu.
Safunza nekwakha nebo-CV tintfo letikabi tekufaka ku-CV nekuthi udlungiselela kanjani nawuyowenda i-interview nawuya ku-interview ukuthi utawukhuluma kanjani ugcoka kanjani. Namuhla besikhuluma ngekuthi ibhizinisi loyifunako ngafandwa kanjani. Sinawo-ke amabhizinisi lakhona namuhla lafana namabhizinisi lamakhulu njengabo-Youth Enterprise Fund that told us that you can come with your business plan, you don't need any surety, so long as your business plan is legible and valid and makes sense.
Lo mfundasikolo-ke uqale ngemsombuluko kanti uphela ngalesithathu evikini lelisetulu. Umbiko uhlanganiswe ngithembelihle Magutshwa tithombe ngithembasha banguye siteki.
Kulandzela imilayeto letfolwe sive lesibhadala umthelo amabona kudze ngemali lesibonakala yengetekile kunaleyo letayelekile lobuke tinhlelo ebandleni lelibutha umthelo amabona kudze phumelele Dlamini uthi sive asingaphaphuleki umthelo amabona kudze awukenyuki kube nekuphatamiseka tsite kubongcomvo mshina.
Ngemsombuluko kuleli viki sive lesibhadala umthelo wamabona kudze sitfole umlayeto kubomahlale ekhukhwini ukuthi kumele babhadale imali elinganiselwe emakhulwini lamane emalangeni babhadala umthelo wamabona kudze lochamuka ebandleni lelibutha lomthelo yeSwatini TV License Consortium. Lobuke tinhlelo kuleli bandla Phumelele Dlamini uthi umthelo wamabona kudze awukenyuki sive asingaphaphuleki kube khona kuphatamiseka tsite kubongcomvo mshina babo bekusebenta.
Silohhovisi laka TV license njengeminyakeni yonke siyachubeka besisenda imilayeto kumbe ngembo SMS kokuthi sive vele sikhunjulwe phela ukuthi i-deadline seyiyasonzela asichubeke sive sisukume siyobhadala ngato indlela letehlukene tekubhadala umthelo wa-TV license. Sitheke kusendeka lokho sakhanza sekuba ne-error leyendekako lokho kuthi umthelo we-TV license u-180 emalangeni per device ye-television kube ngu-50 emalangeni per decoder per year kube ngu-50 emalangeni lo munye futhi we-set top box noma-ke wasigujana eminyakeni. Lesikukhanzile-ke lokungathi kube sekuyendeka asathi lokuthi kuchafadeke njani nakuthunyelwa yona le milayeto kwakhanzeka sekusendeka ema-messages lamanengi lathi umthelo so ngu-450 emalangeni. Sicela nje ukucondzisa kona esiveni kokuthi umthelo we-TV license usengakakhuphuki usenguye 180 emalangeni. Sivuma kona esiveni ukuthi sicela nokuxolisa bekunene sive asingaphaphuleki 180 emalangeni nguye umthelo. Futhi ke nangabe bosowubhadele umthelo sithi asikuphaphula le message. I-message lena lethunyelwa nje wonke lo namabona kuthi. Nangabe ke bosokulaba lababhadele vele kukhona la bese kuthi ekugcineni please ignore if paid. So sithi nje asicondzise lokho samu namuhla kokuthi umthelo umile u-180 50 emalangeni ke kuwo lamanye ema-devices.
Phumelele uphinze wagcizelela kuso sive ukuthi singakhohlwa ukubhadala umthelo wabo wamabonakude nakuphela inyanga lesitulu njengoba kulanga lekugcina mhla tinga-31 lokutawubese kubita ukuthi lo longakhona ukubhadala abhadale imali leyengetiwe nakucala umnyaka lotako. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika samkeliswe khoza nginavuma inkosini Sinisa eMbabane.
Letinye tetimvu letipepetela kusebenziswa kwetidzakamiva kubantfu labasha lapha eveni kungakhulumisani nebatali etindzaba tekukhula. Lokuvete ngulobuke inhlangano lebuke kugwema kusebenziswa kwetidzakamiva etikolweni i-Eswatini Association of Students Against Drug Abuse and Trafficking, Reverend Peter Semo-Gerere.
Inhlangano kaMhlaba ithi kusebenziswa kwetidzakamiva kubantfana labaneminyaka lengaphansi kwaleli-18 solo kuyachubeka nekuba insaya lenkulu kutempilo elivikatini le-Afrika. Lobuke inhlangano legwema kusebenziswa kwetidzakamiva etikolweni i-Eswatini Association of Students Against Drug Abuse and Trafficking SADAT, Reverend Peter Semo-Gerere uthi labakubonile bayinhlangano basaniketa teluleko kubantfu labasha lababhekene nekusebenzisa tidzakamiva kuti batali nebantfana kunetimvo labangakhulumisani ngato tetigcine tiholele ekutheni kube melula kusebenzisa tidzakamiva.
Now, a number of things have come up, and what we would like to say as SADAT is that parents should be there for the children. They should have time for the children. And when we talk about this, someone might think, oh, I'm at home with my children, I'm watching TV with them, I have meals with them, I take them out. Now, we must separate this, what we are saying, from what some people are already doing. If you're at home with your children watching TV, what channels are you watching? You are still there watching your TV, they're seated around. You are not watching their channels, or you shut them down. So what is it that the children want that you can do with them? If you choose to take the children out, have you asked them where they want to go? Or you are taking them out where you want to be, maybe with your friends and all those things? So this needs some bit of talking with the parents. We kept them from March 2020 when we started the online counseling, and up to date we have 235 individuals that have called, and some of these have continued to call again to make follow-up. And so this year it's about 135. I don't have exact number about it, but that's where we are. And we are currently running counseling sessions with the individuals in person, and we have 5 individuals at the moment. Of these, 4 are adults and 1 is a young man.
Reverend Semo-Gerere uphinze wanxusa abatali ukuthi babanakisise kakhulu bamfana nyalo ngemaholide njengoba ematfuba ekutfola tidzakamiva abasetulu. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika samkeliswe khoza nginavuma inkosini Sinisa eMbabane.
Letinye tetimvu letipepetela kusebenziswa kwetidzakamiva kubantfu labasha lapha eveni kungakhulumisani nebatali etindzaba tekukhula. Lokuvete ngulobuke inhlangano lebuke kugwema kusebenziswa kwetidzakamiva etikolweni i-Eswatini Association of Students Against Drug Abuse and Trafficking, Reverend Peter Semo-Gerere uthi labakubonile bayinhlangano basaniketa teluleko kubantfu labasha lababhekene nekusebenzisa tidzakamiva kuti batali nebantfwana kunetimvo labangakhulumisani ngato tetigcine tiholele ekutheni kube melula kusebenzisa tidzakamiva. Mandla Maduna longumphathi welicembu leMalandi Chiefs phecelezi imanager uthi kungadlali kahle kwaleli cembu solokuqala imidlalo ye-league ukuthi badlalisa abadlali labancane labangakajwayeli kudlala esigabeni saka Premier League. iMalandi Chiefs emidlalweni lesikhombisa leudlale ineliphuzu linye.
Iqembu leMalandi Chiefs licembu lelatiwa njengemacembu ladlala kahle ebholeni yakuleli. Kodwa-ke timu kade lihambeli kahle kuleli cembu solokusuka umnyaka lomusha webhola wa-2021-2022. Mandla Maduna longumphathi waleli cembu phecelezi imanager uthi tintfo letibalimete kakhulu kudlalisa abadlali labasebancane.
Inkinga ukuthi-ke sikhona ukuhlanganisa abafana labancane nalabadzala. Kuyenteka ukuthi sithi first second game sinalabafana kule sithathu sebalimele sesiphinde sesifaka lomunye longakase wadlala. Shothi nje kulama game lawa lang6 sidlalise bafana labanenge labaqalako ukudlala. Angakhona lokuhlangana kahle. Ngiyo le nkinga lebeyikhona. Kuthi kule 7 ngilebe ngathi labo esakha i-team lengiyo. Kube nje besichubekana kuleli viki leli. Levikini lesitodlala kahle ngoba sebajwayelene sebakahle nyana.
Lokungadlali kahle kuMalandi Chiefs kwente ukuthi bamisa umceceshi waleli cembu Gumbu kusebenta kanti emidlalweni lesikhombisa labayidlalile baneliphuzu linye. Lobikele umsakazi Eswatini TV temidlalo ngilinda Dlamini na Fabrice Msonera eMbabane.
Temidlalo siyatephetha tindzaba tetfu lomhla ekseni sibakhulu ukuhlala nathi yasibohlele temakethe sizabuya sichubeke nehlelo.
Nziki skim sami, mayingiyabonga kungadisa ngemvo lebenyaze ibeyimfihlo kulomunye umuntu. Ungadise ngesimo sakho sekuphila ne-HIV. Mngani wami, yati ukuthi ngimi nawe. Waya.
Mngani wami, ukwende kwaba melula kakhulu ukubhokokela. Ngiyati ukuthi soze wangihlamula. Bunguwe bakho, uyangikhulula kakhulu emoyeni wami. Ngiyabonga girl. Ungikhulula kakhulu kwathi ukuthi wena uyahlala unami njalo.
Girl, sisonke always. Kuphila ne-HIV angeke kulushintshe nakancane lithambo lwami ngawe. Mnganami, yati ukuthi ngimi nawe sonke isikhathi.
Kuva kabandi shayela 1212.
Hello everyone. Thank you for tuning in on Eswatini TV on another fantastic and insightful episode of Dream It, Achieve It, brought to you by myself, your new host, Nomalungelo Tilu Jele. Dream It, Achieve It is a program that encourages entrepreneurship skills for creative, unique business ideas that foster a proactive and independent youth. Be sure not to miss our season 3 under the theme Youth Empowerment every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Eswatini TV.
Khisimusi lilanga lekuthi nihlangane nengomndeni nitosherisha timbo nje letiyentekile nekubonga uNkulunkulu.
Ngathenza nje ukuvusela bonke abakholwayo. Engoma yathi muthi.
Kunetingoma takhe simusi lehlatshelwa kubusuku. Uyabona? Yeah. Lapho umntwana ezaliweyo. Nangumntwana nangumama.
Ingoma lengiyifuna ko ilapha kumaskandi. Noma ngiphi nje yamfaso noma ikhona. Nidlale bese ngivusela ke buso benkunzi ke bayamazi laba mina.
Vusela libandla lami la ngikhonda khona eBethlehem ngaphasi kwaBishop wami babeqinzi.
Oluhambo luthethe impilo.
Welcome back Mbogeli, you're still watching Kusile Breakfast Shows Magulu kusesole nihlelisene nathi njengoba besivetile masingena ukuthi sitabe sibuka inkulumo ya Dr. Tedros longucondzisi jikelele wenhlangano yakamhlaba yetempilo asiniketa nje update ngawo umkhuhlane COVID-19 kanye nelizinga lokugoma lesivi lebantfu emhlabeni wonke.
More than 3.3 million people have lost their lives to COVID-19 this year. More deaths than from HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis combined in 2020. And still, COVID-19 continues to claim around 50,000 lives every week. That's not to mention the unreported deaths and the millions of excess deaths caused by disruptions to essential health services. Africa is now facing a steep wave of infections, driven largely by the Omicron variant. Just a month ago, Africa was reporting its lowest number of cases in 18 months. Last week, it reported the fourth highest number of cases in a single week so far. There is now consistent evidence that Omicron is spreading significantly faster than the Delta variant. And it's more likely that people who have been vaccinated or have recovered from COVID-19 could be infected or reinfected. There can be no doubt that increased social mixing over the holiday period in many countries will lead to increased cases, overwhelmed health systems, and more deaths. All of us are sick of this pandemic. All of us want to spend time with friends and family. All of us want to get back to normal. The fastest way to do this is for all of us, leaders and individuals, to make the difficult decisions that must be made to protect ourselves and others. In some cases, that will mean canceling or delaying events, just as we have had to cancel the reception we plan to have with you today. But an event cancelled is better than a life cancelled. It's better to cancel now and celebrate later than to celebrate now and grieve later. None of us want to be here again in 12 months' time, talking about missed opportunities, continued inequity, or new variants. If we are to end the pandemic in the coming year, we must end inequity by ensuring 70% of the population of every country is vaccinated by the middle of next year. Last week, WHO issued emergency use listing for a ninth vaccine produced by the Serum Institute of India under license from Novavax. This new vaccine is part of the COVAX portfolio, and we hope that it will play an important role in achieving our global vaccination targets. As you know, COVID-19 is far from the only emergency to which WHO has responded this year. In Afghanistan, Cox's Bazar, DRC, Ethiopia, Syria, Yemen, and elsewhere, WHO is delivering humanitarian aid, supporting health systems, responding to outbreaks, and doing everything we can to save lives. And around the world, WHO is working with countries to restore and sustain essential health services disrupted by the pandemic. According to new data released this year, 23 million children missed out on routine vaccines in 2020, the largest number in over a decade, increasing risks from preventable diseases like measles and polio. However, 5 countries were able to introduce the human papillomavirus vaccine to prevent cervical cancer, and a further 9 are planning to introduce it over the next 6 months. And in September, we launched a global roadmap to defeat meningitis by 2030. The pandemic has also caused setbacks in our efforts to defeat the world's leading infectious diseases. There were an estimated 14 million more malaria cases and 47,000 more malaria deaths in 2020 compared to 2019. However, WHO certified 2 countries, China and El Salvador, as malaria-free this year, and a further 25 are on track to end malaria transmission by 2025. This year will also be remembered for WHO's recommendation for broad use of the world's first malaria vaccine, which could save tens of thousands of children's lives every year. Services for non-communicable diseases have also been hit hard. More than half of countries surveyed between June and October this year reported disruptions to services for diabetes, cancer screening and treatment, and management of hypertension. With 2021 marking the 100th anniversary of the discovery of insulin, WHO added long-acting insulin analogs and quality-assured biosimilars to the essential medicines list, paving the way for increased access and lower prices for these life-saving tools. On tobacco use, we continue to see positive trends. 2 years ago, only 32 countries were on track to lower tobacco use by 30% between 2010 and 2025. Now, 60 countries are on course to achieve the target reduction. On air pollution, we launched new global air quality guidelines in September, with clear evidence of the damage air pollution inflicts on human health at even lower concentrations than previously known. Just last week, more than 4,500 participants at the Global Conference on Health Promotion endorsed the Geneva Charter for Wellbeing, outlining key areas of action for driving a paradigm shift in disease prevention and health promotion that, if implemented, could reduce premature mortality by 50%. And to mark International Migrants' Day on Saturday, WHO has launched new standards to support countries to provide better health services to refugees and migrants. We have also taken several important steps this year to strengthen the global health architecture and WHO. We launched the WHO Hub for Pandemic and Epidemic Intelligence in Berlin. We broke ground on the WHO Academy in Lyon. We established the WHO BioHub system. Our open WHO online learning platform has now registered 6 million enrollments for courses on COVID-19 and many other health topics in 60 languages. Earlier this month, our member states agreed to negotiate a convention, agreement, or other international instrument on pandemic preparedness and response. And just last week, member states also discussed options for improving the sustainability and predictability of WHO's funding. We have also taken decisive steps to address instances of sexual exploitation and abuse, and to make sure that our people meet the high standards that we and our member states expect of them. 2022 must be the year we end the pandemic, but it must also be the year that all countries invest in preventing a future disaster on this scale. and in accelerating efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. That means investing in resilient health systems built on primary health care with universal health coverage as the goal. Even before the pandemic, 1 billion people were spending more than 10% of their household budget on health care. When people can't access the services they need or can't afford them, individuals, families, communities, and entire societies are put at risk. In the year ahead, WHO is committed to doing everything in our power to end the pandemic and to beginning a new era in global health, an era in which health is at the center of every country's development plans. Let me end with some thanks. I thank the health workers all over the world who continue to put themselves in harm's way to serve and save others. I thank the scientists, researchers, and public health experts who continue to develop new goals, new tools against this virus and to study it. I thank you, our friends in the media, for the role you play in covering WHO, helping to get our messages out, and in holding us accountable. We very much appreciate those of you who have worked to cover WHO and the pandemic fairly and accurately. Finally, I thank WHO staff all over the world who have continued to work in ways most people don't see, to promote health, keep the world safe, and serve the vulnerable.
Lo-ke bekungu-Director General ka-WHO Dr. Tedros asiniketa nje update ngawo umkhuhlane i-COVID-19 eveni. Kanti-ke lokumbala nje uvetile ukuthi sekushone abantu labangu-3.3 million emhlabeni wonke babulawa ngiwo lo mkhuhlane i-COVID-19. Uphindze-ke wabonga athi sebentile empilo emhlabeni wonke ngemsebenzi labawendako kusebenta ngekutikhandla kuzama kusinzisa timpilo tebantu labatikhandza bagula kakhulu labasetibhedlela labaguliswa ngiwo lo mkhuhlane. Kanti uphindze wanxusa bonke abantu emhlabeni ukuthi bawugomele lo mkhuhlane njengoba lokho kuyasita ukuthi ungatikhandze sawugula kakhulu sekudzinga ukuthi salo umikiswa esibhedlela. Asibahlele temakethe nasibuya sitabuya sibuke tindzaba lethamba embili kulamanye emave.
President Joe Biden said Tuesday he has 3 tools to fight the rapid spread of COVID-19's formidable Omicron variant. The administration will increase support for hospitals, make 500 million free tests available to Americans, and expand vaccine access. He also encouraged the vaccinated to not panic.
If you're not fully vaccinated, you have good reason to be concerned. You're at a high risk of getting sick. And if you get sick, you're likely to spread it to others, including friends and family. The unvaccinated have a significantly higher risk of ending up in a hospital or even dying. Almost everyone who has died from COVID-19 in the past many months has been unvaccinated. Unvaccinated. But if you're among the majority of Americans who are fully vaccinated, and especially if you've gotten the booster shot, that third shot, you have much less reason to worry.
Biden acknowledged that persuading the holdouts, about 40% of Americans are completely unvaccinated, is an enduring challenge for his administration.
Look, the unvaccinated are responsible for their own choices. But those choices have been fueled by dangerous misinformation on cable TV and social media. You know, these companies and personalities are making money by peddling lies and allowing misinformation that can kill their own customers and their own supporters. It's wrong. It's immoral. I call on the purveyors of these lies and misinformation to stop it. Stop it now.
In recent days, an unlikely pro-vaccine ally has emerged, former President Donald Trump. He recently admitted he had received a booster shot and was booed for it by some of his followers.
It may be one of the few things he and I agree on. People with booster shots are highly protected. Join them. Join us.
But critics say this push for boosters is unjust when many around the world have yet to get a single shot. On Tuesday, the One Campaign, a health policy advocacy organization, warned that there is no way to hit the target of vaccinating 40% of the world's population by the end of the year, and that it could take more than a decade for low-income countries to match the vaccination levels of high-income countries.
We are absolutely not winning the global war against the pandemic, as evidenced by Omicron. But of course, Delta showed us that, and the original virus showed us that. The lack of global leadership, the lack of coordinated leadership among countries, the me-first reaction by every, government leader during the first 2 years of this pandemic has meant that it has continued on longer at the cost of more lives and more livelihoods. It's very clear what needs to happen. A national-only strategy will not work.
Critics also decry wealthy nations for hoarding essential supplies. On Tuesday, Biden defended the U.S. decision to stockpile protective equipment and ventilators as necessary to prepare for a run on hospitals. This week, as Americans stare down this threat, Biden sought to put a balm on his weary nation.
I know you're tired. I really mean this, and I know you're frustrated. We all want this to be over, but we're still in it. And this is a critical moment. We also have more tools than we ever had before. We're ready. We'll get through this.
Masosixubana dotinza abadetfu lethi bangaphandle kwakuleli kuba khona kwemkhuhlane uhlobo lolusha lomkhuhlane Omicron variant sekutawubuyisela emuva ema-tourists lamaningi labafila bewafise ukuvakashela lidolobha lase-Bethlehem lonyaka ngakhisimusi.
A few weeks ago, Bethlehem Palestinians celebrated the lighting of the traditional Christmas tree in front of the Church of the Nativity. Stores and hotels were looking forward to the arrival of thousands of tourists and pilgrims, in contrast to last year's Christmas under lockdown. But then the COVID Omicron variant hit.
Because of the pandemic, we have 67 hotels closed, more than 120 shops selling Oriental antiques and restaurants closed. There are craftsmen who closed their businesses and also employees who were working in these sectors who stopped their work. We are talking about great damage to Bethlehem and its economy as a result of the spread of the corona pandemic.
Bethlehem Mayor Anton Salman says more than half of Bethlehem's income comes from tourism, particularly Christians who flock to the city from all over the world. These international visitors are now blocked from entering through Israeli airports in order to prevent the spread of the Omicron variant. Today, the few international tourists in Bethlehem are people who already live and work in Israel, joining small groups of local Palestinian Christians.
This time, it's very quiet. I think we are the only one group today from Tel Aviv. And that's the sad part of seeing the situation right now here in Bethlehem.
The lack of Christmas crowds is also disappointing to those who plan to show off the recently finished decade-long restoration work in the Church of the Nativity.
So it was not restored for like 500 years, and the roof, which you see, was in a very bad shape. Water was, just dropping down, destroying the beautiful mosaics and the plaster of the church. We have 1.4 million small mosaic pieces, imagine, which have been cleaned and restored. Then we did the paintings on the 52 columns. We had like 400 experts from all over the world working with Palestinian architects and workers. So we are very proud as Palestinians that we have been able to do this work, sharing it also with all believers, with all people of faith, but also with people who love culture, art history, and who love to come to Bethlehem and see the church in its new glory.
Mayor Salman says he refuses to give up hope on his city.
We are in the capital of Christmas, the capital of hope, because Christmas brought to the world the hope. And we are living the hope with all our difficulties.
And he hopes that next year Bethlehem will be packed with pilgrims coming to see the Church of the Nativity in all of its restored glory.
Kanti sichubekela eveni laseMelika emhlanganweni betindzaba amabhalane wahulumende eveni laseMelika Anthony Blinken sokumametele kokuthi ilive laseMelika selakhe budlelwane nalamanye emave emhlaba.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced reporters to look back and forward after a momentous, sometimes tumultuous year. Many questions focused on the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russian-backed separatists and fears of a new Russian invasion with a massive buildup of Russian troops along the two countries' common border. Blinken again called on Moscow to de-escalate the situation and pull its troops back. He said the U.S. is ready to hold talks with Moscow and all the stakeholders in the region, likely in January.
We're engaged in diplomacy and deterrence at the same time. These two things go hand in hand. As you know, just to step back for a second, President Biden, when he first met with President Putin in Geneva some months ago, and you were there, said to President Putin that our strong preference is for a more predictable and stable relationship between Russia and the United States. But if Russia continues to engage in reckless or aggressive actions, we will respond, and we'll respond strongly.
Blinken was also asked if he had regrets about the hasty and chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan after the Taliban took power in Kabul in August. He said there will be plenty of time to reflect, but that President Joe Biden made good on his promise to end the 20-year U.S. war in Afghanistan.
We knew this would be challenging. It was. And there are lessons from the evacuation and relocation that we're learning for the future. But this is also the first time in 20 years that no U.S. troops are spending the holidays in Afghanistan, and we're not sending a third generation of American soldiers to fight and die there.
Blinken said the U.S. is fully aware of the suffering of the Afghan people and is working intensely with allies to get liquidity back into the Afghan economy and money into the pockets of the Afghan people, and not in the hands of the Taliban rulers.
Kanti-ke bashushisi bafise ukuthi bomsolwa labane labadubula indiza e-Ukraine ngeminyaka wa 2014 batfole isigwebo se-life sentence.
The horror of MH17 is forever etched in the memory of Hirabov. It was here just outside the village that the Malaysia Airlines flight came crashing down on the 17th of July 2014. The plane had been hit by a Buk missile, killing all 298 people on board. Some residents are still haunted by that day.
На то время, как упал самолет, нам с друзьями было по 15, по 16 лет. Малые еще сами дети. Ну, тут насмотрелись это. Ну, это все из-за войны. Вот если бы не война, это...
Flight MH17 was shot down over eastern Ukraine. An armed conflict had been raging in the region between government forces and Russia-backed separatists. The flight took off from Amsterdam and 196 of the victims were Dutch nationals, so the Netherlands was tasked with leading the probe. After 15 months, the international team of investigators concluded that a Russian-made warhead, blasted using the Buk missile, was launched from the rebel-held part of eastern Ukraine to down the aircraft. 2 years later, in May of 2018, Australia and the Netherlands publicly blamed Russia for the crash. This after they discovered that the missile system belonged to a Russian military base in the city of Kursk. Moscow has vehemently denied all involvement. In 2019, prosecutors indicted 4 men, 3 Russians and a Ukrainian man, all of whom have ties with Russian-backed rebel groups. They were all charged with murder. The trial started in March last year in the Netherlands. All 4 suspects have refused to appear in court. They've all been tried in absentia.
Patrice Motsepe sokuqinisekisile ukuthi AFCON itawuqhubeka idlale eCameroon eminyakeni lotako.
The world of football in Africa breathes a sigh of relief as organizers of AFCON 2022 say the show will still go on even though Omicron is spreading rapidly across the continent. But the tournament will have strict COVID rules. Along with a ticket, spectators will have to show a negative PCR test and proof of vaccination before being allowed to enter stadiums.
No plans right now to pause the season.
A COVID outbreak may have forced the NBA to postpone multiple games, but organizers seem determined to see the season through. 97% of players in the NBA are fully jabbed, and the league's head says athletes and the rest of society must learn to live with the virus. But other sports organizations are staying cautious. From the 28th of December, the German football championship, the Bundesliga, along with all other sports games in the country, will have to be played behind closed doors. This as Germany grapples with a fifth wave. France is also seeing a surge in infections. Fans wanting to watch Ligue 1 games will have to wear a mask. Non-vaccinated players and staff members will have to show a negative PCR or antigen test. Across the channel, the tradition of Boxing Day football is set to be disrupted this year in England, as Omicron becomes the dominant variant there. Several English Football League games have been put on hold, but Premier League fixtures will still go ahead during the festive period. Last week, 90 Premier League players and club staff tested positive for COVID-19.
It's 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. Sitiphethe lapho tindzaba tethu lethamba embili kulamanye emave. Sibonga kakhulu nje ukuthi sonihlele nasi lomhla ekseni kungilesihlanu njengoba sivetile ukuthi sekusele nje amalanga la emfica kuphela ukuthi singene eminyakeni wa 2022 nanamhla siyambonga umdala ukuthi usigcinile kwade kwafika lilanga lanamuhla njengoba ke avetile lapha Dr. Tedros lokho ukuthi uyacela lokho ukuthi abantu abacubeke bawugomele lomkhuhlane kuzama ukunciphisa inombolo talabolo uyakhanze ukuthi babe sebagula kakhulu sebaya admitwa edibhedlela uyawanxusa onke emave emhlaba ukuthi yacicutele sive sawo sekuthi bawugomele lomkhuhlane njengoba nje ngivetile ecaleni mangena ehlelweni ukuthi live lase Nigeria le destroye imijovo lengu 1 million itolo ekseni imijovo yaAstraZeneca ngesizathu sokuthi bantu solabafuna ukugomela lomkhuhlane etizathu letithide ngetinkolelo letehlukene kodwa ke inhlangano kamhlaba yetempilo solo yacubeka nekukhuthaza sive ukuthi asihambe siyogomela lomkhuhlane side effects akhona kodwa ke kude iproof ukuthi mhlambe labo bantu labo basuke babulewe ngiwo lomjovo uyacela ke ukuthi bamba bawugomela umkhuhlane bathole information lengiyo leliciniso bangathole nje information labayikhanza kubo social media ngaloko lokumbukelisa senivalelisa sethemba ukuthi indaba nelisuku loluhle namhla ekseni nitsale kahle.